Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hi, welcome to the latest edition of LiveWiseMS.org. I'm your host, Kim Freiling-Reesar. Today, it's going to be a little bit different than what I normally do, and I'm going to start off with my first interview, my first radio interview. And who better to interview for my first time than the one of the biggest supporters that I've had so far in my life, obviously, and it's my mother, Sherry Freiling. So, Mom, thank you for doing this with me.
And it's my pleasure.
I know that we haven't talked, I don't know if we've talked in length, and part of this I'd like to talk to you about is basically how you, as my mother, dealt with the time when I was diagnosed with MS and the things that you went through. I know I talk a lot about what people, me personally, went through after I heard that news, but I'm curious from a mother's perspective, what was the first thing that you thought of when you heard that I possibly had MS?
The first thing that both your father and I thought of when we heard about your MS diagnosis was about several of our friends who are our contemporaries, meaning older in age, and their battle with MS. And when I was much younger, and most parents will remember this, MS was not a diagnosis that you wanted to have yourself, any of your relatives, or any of your friends have, because it was a diagnosis that seemed to impact people in a more aggressive way, and quickly the person who had MS would go into debilitating time of their life and eventually not survive the MS.
Right. So I know now, having sons myself, having children myself, with any minor thing happens to them, I kind of freak out. So I can't even imagine getting that news. And it was the worst thing for me in the hotel room when you guys came in, because I've talked before, when I was diagnosed, I was hospitalized for 5 days, and you guys were living in Pennsylvania, so you had to take a 5 to 6 hour drive up, which must have been excruciating for you guys. And then to see you guys and my father and my mother, you walk in the room, and Dad, who's, for the listening audience out there, is a big, tough man, and having tears in his eyes. That was really hard for me to see. So I can't even imagine. That car ride must have been, I don't know if you talked about it, I don't know if you had denial, what you thought coming up.
Looking back at that almost 14 years ago, I guess, or more,
Yeah.
I don't really truly remember the ride up. I remember both your father and I having extreme concern, and your dad being our rock, as always, was, well, we're not not going to worry about it till we get some definite information and we have something to worry about. And I do remember when we checked into the hotel near where you were hospitalized, and your father made a few phone calls to friends and relatives. It was one of the only times that I've seen him sob. And I felt like I, at the time, was a little bit stronger because I knew I had to be strong for him and especially for you. So much at that time did I appreciate your older sister, Gina, our oldest daughter, because she truly was the rock during this whole diagnosis time.
She was truly amazing, and she just dropped everything, and yeah, I think took time off work and came up and stayed with me. She was incredible. And she tried so much to keep a sense of normalcy too, when obviously at that time things were just so abnormal. So yeah, I can't even. So going to that, so I can imagine that. Like, how did you start to deal with it? What did you learn? Did you learn things about it? Did you seek out information? What did you do after that time? I know it took me a few years to get through that whole muck that I call it after diagnosis, but what did you do as a parent? Did you do anything special?
Well, we especially tried to listen to you and give you all the support and love that we could. And in speaking with us, Kim, you were adamant about you only should go to certain MS sites. And of course, the National MS Society, and you had mentioned several others that we used as resources, and we just read and read and read. I immediately signed on as parents of a child, an adult child being diagnosed with MS, and was given so much helpful information, and soon realized with the few medications that were available at that time that the prognosis was good. You were definitely a fighter. In retrospect, we learned and realized that MS was not only present in your life on the day of your exacerbation or and your diagnosis. We realized that some of the classic diagnoses were things that you had experienced. And I think I pointed out to you, and you let me go to your second appointment. I believe Gina went to with your first, your sister.
My sister went to my first.
And I realized that you had this. You know, there is always fear and concern and worry about the unknown. But we have learned through the whole process that there isn't anything Kim can't handle.
Oh.
And a wonderful time in the medical
I always
things
say,
that are happening.
Absolutely. I always say that MS is not the disease that it used to be, like when you knew friends growing up, that there's so many. I mean, I can't even believe, Mom, since I was diagnosed, you know, now there's over a dozen medications, and they're oral and infusion. I mean, there's so many different options. I mean, you never want to be diagnosed with a chronic illness, but if you're going to be, I think, you know, unfortunately, this is an exciting time, though, with all the different options out there. And people are living, and I always talk about, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I always talk about how there used to be a statistic out there that said after 10 years that most people with relapsing remitting MS move into the secondary progressive phase. And, you know, I'm living proof that that statistic, you know, is not really accurate anymore. So it is a better time to have to deal with this. I mean, no one wants to deal with a chronic illness, but if you had to pick a time, and I feel horrible for the people that had to come before me who didn't have these options, and it kind of breaks my heart. But you know, there's nothing we can do but forge ahead. So,
And
go ahead.
I think like anybody who is battling an autoimmune disease or a chronic condition, they realize that this may not benefit me now, but what I'm going through, the drugs that we're trying and all are going to benefit the next generation of MS warriors.
Absolutely.
We became very involved with Brigham Women's Hospital and Harvard Medical Center in a parent study.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that way. Both your father and I felt like we're doing something to help with this because they're going to use our blood long after we're gone for studies and ways of gleaning information about this disease.
I'm actually going to have you cloned, Mom. I'm going to have you cloned.
I did. I did
Okay.
say me cloned because you will regret that. I will talk uninterrupted, and I'm not a person that you want to duplicate.
No, yes, you do. So yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, it had to be reassuring to you. I mean, I was lucky and fortunate to be I mean, like you said, I was experiencing flares previously that I didn't realize was MS at the time. And knowing me like you do, since you're my mother, you probably know me better than anyone in the world. I would push through those and make excuses and say it was something else other than any problem. So I kind of pushed through it. But now looking back, I probably lived with it for several years before I was diagnosed. But I was lucky to be diagnosed right away in the hospital and to have be referred to the MS clinic in Boston and to go on treatment basically right away. So that had to make you feel good that I was in a good spot being taken care of at the MS clinic. You said you take part in trials when you can. I know I do. Every time I go in there, I always ask them, what do you need from me? You need my spit, my urine? What do you need? My blood? Anything, take it. Because that's my way of giving back and hopefully moving us as ever slow or fast that we go towards a cure. So how did you feel about the care that I received after? It's
Oh,
probably,
being positive on the positive side, we had felt like you had moved to Boston area 6 weeks before you had this exacerbation, called me in Philadelphia suburb area, said, Mom, people are looking at me funny when I walk my dog. And you described that you were affected on one side of your body, dragging your foot, your arm kind of hanging lifelessly.
mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, Kim, get yourself to get a doctor's appointment right away. Find a woman doctor, because I know that's what you prefer, but go make and see one right away, or get yourself to the ER, because you're either having a stroke, bad news,
Right.
or you have MS, just from what I had seen with friends. And when you ask about how did I feel about your care, I always say you're getting the best care, and I know that there was a plan, and for you to be in Boston to be able to participate in all the wonderful opportunities for MS treatment. And I also realize that I can't be too selfish and say you're having the best treatment, because
Right.
the best treatment is available in every large city, and I'm sure in smaller areas. When you asked me about how we felt, another thing that we felt, and I know I've told you this, just like you as a newly diagnosed patient go through, what did I do? And then reading that there are 60 plus things that you need to have in concert for this to happen, and also knowing that years ago diagnoses were not as quickly obtained because of the advancements that they now have for the markers.
Mm-hmm.
Both your father and I, me especially being the mother, felt, what did we do? What did I do to contribute to the cause of this MS diagnosis? That's a guilt thing that I'm sure parents, whether it's an autoimmune disease or any other illness, you want to take responsibility for it. Something that I've done wrong that's caused my child to have this.
But
And I think that
you didn't, and you know that I mean, I know you educate yourself, and you know that, they don't know why, but there's got to be some kind of predisposition, and it was just, it was like a perfect storm, kind of like all things lined up, and that's how it happened. I mean, I can't, and it's kind of one of those things you can't explain in a way until they have a definite answer. It seems like it's, like I said, a bunch of different factors. I mean, there's a lot of things that I didn't have. I didn't have mono. They say that that's a possible cause or a trigger for it. Um,
Guillain-Barré
yeah,
syndrome also.
they've said that too. I mean, there's lots of different triggers that they're guessing at. Well, I don't want to say they're guessing. I'm sure there's scientific backing to it, but I don't think that they have a definitive answer on what exactly, brought that out in people. So,
I
yeah.
think
Go ahead.
responsibility that I can take, and I'm sorry I'm interrupting, and I
No, no, I
apologize.
want this. This is good. Go ahead.
I know that more than likely my genetics are what caused you to have MS, because of a brother having Crohn's disease,
Right.
an autoimmune disease, and a niece having lupus,
Right.
and another niece having Raynaud syndrome. Things that, as far as I've learned through my research, are participatory as far as causes, meaning that
there's an autoimmune connection in that side of the family. Yeah, definitely.
And it doesn't appear to be on your dad's side, so I guess I'm elected.
Well, that's okay.
Okay, by virtue of
just
the last woman standing here.
That's all right. So how do you feel now? I mean, I know the past 14 years have just flown by, and it's almost surreal to think back to that time. But and I know you still worry about me. I know you still do, which I don't think I can ever alleviate or assure you enough that I am okay. But I think you realize that that's part of my fight, is that I have to be okay, or at least appear okay. But how would you say the last 14 years? What do you think's changed? What do you think do you have a different view on it? I know you've touched on it a little bit already, but is there things that have changed in the past 14 years for you?
The biggest thing I think is I've learned as a parent that you really need to let go. As a person, you really need to let go. There are some things you can't control. There's things that you can't predict, and you can only be promising to, I'll always be there for you, and I'll always be there for your children. And I would be that kind of parent as every other parent would feel, that they're there for their children and their children's children and their children's spouses also. I think I grew in the experience. Who wouldn't grow? Because you learn about your own strengths and weaknesses. I try to step back and not interfere, although that's a God-given temperament that I have. And just like interrupting is one of my bad virtues. But I see that you can handle yourself. You got a game plan. I know that I feel badly for you, because I know that how I feel when I'm tired, and I can't imagine what MS fatigue feels like. And my fatigue is not the fatigue that a normal average person would have. Mine is that of a soon-to-be 70-year-old who's just losing steam. But, I feel for you. And, and I know I told you this, and it kind of upset you to hear that, but you'll realize with your own children that the reason we moved from the Philadelphia area to New England, actually we're like about a 45-minute or hour ride north of you, is because we want to be there to help you in any way that you need, whether it is emotionally, physically, monetarily, mother-daughter, and I think we have a great mother-daughter relationship, and that I cherish. And we want to both, your father and I, be involved and participatory in our grandsons' lives, and we just love being able to take them camping and bring them up for overnights and have family holidays without that grueling 6.5-hour ride back.
Right.
And we've never looked back. That was the best decision for us. Everyone else moved south, like most of our friends, to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina.
You moved to cold New England.
We're the crazy dynamic duo that moved north. What were we thinking?
Well, I couldn't thank you guys enough for just all the support, and I contribute a lot of the strength that I have, and how I kind of pride myself and pat myself on the back that I think I'm handling it okay, that I've made the best of this situation, and I think that comes a lot from you guys for how to deal with a difficult situation. Now, you must have, to go back to the time of diagnosis, I don't know, because like you said, it's kind of a blur, but I know it was going through a lot of emotions then, and a lot of moods, if you will. Was there, was it difficult to deal with me then? Was I kind of, was I, a witch? How was I during that time? Or was it all kind of understandable? You kind of gave me kind of leeway.
The MS diagnosis from hell reaction? No.
Was that?
Kim, you handle yourself remarkably. I remember you saying when we got there, after you had received the diagnosis, you said, well, they really broke it to me nicely. They said, you didn't have a stroke, you don't have a brain tumor, but you have MS. So it's like door number 3 was your best option. And I think humorous things happened. I remember when you said, would you help me in the shower? And then you said, Mom, not the Karen Silkwood shower.
Yeah, you were scrubbing the heck out of me, and yeah, it was not the most pleasant experience to have. But
yeah, learning to be a caregiver and getting how delicately you washed your baby and young child.
That went out the window. Yeah.
Maybe I scrub it off you. Maybe that's what I thought.
Lovely. Yeah. And if anyone doesn't know, I'm just going to give a little background. The Karen Silkwood shower is a radioactive detox from a movie back in the 80s? Yeah. It's a horrific shower where they scrub you down basically raw.
With brushes and, but I think that's the best blessing that a parent of a child with an autoimmune disease or a chronic illness can have, is to see your child handling it with grace and strength, determination, and sharing all that they have learned from this disease to help others. And I see you doing that with LiveWiseMS.org. I see you doing that when you were helping the newly diagnosed. I love it when you so proudly wear your shirt, diagnosed 13, 14 years ago, and you do one of your half marathons. Such pride. I think we all have a purpose in life, and I've always told you that. Sometimes it takes you a while to figure out what your purpose is. But Kim, you have definitely rose to the occasion of handling MS in a way that I know that I couldn't, but I'm so proud of you. So proud of you.
Thank you. And wow, if anyone needs a little boost in their self-esteem, I definitely recommend you interview your mother, because That was amazing, Mom, and I'm hoping not to cry. I've been trying to keep it together, but um, we could probably talk
And
about
it's
this. Go ahead.
not like we don't have a typical mother-daughter where you tell me, "Oh, Mom,
Well,
don't do that." Don't.
exactly. Exactly.
We've got a relationship where um, I I consider you a daughter, but I'm also privileged to consider you a friend that I have confided, um, not treasures, but things that
We've shared a lot.
somebody just gather close to their own heart and ponder them and not share them with other people. I've been lucky that we have that kind of relation. And MS has not deterred that. I think we savor our moments and we do things to enjoy each other's company. I try to help as much as I can as far as the kids, and I love my grandsons, all three of them, to the moon and back.
Yeah.
And I love being able to see both you and Gina and other relatives in each one of my grandsons. I think that's a blessing that you see that. And if your sons also are learning by watching Mom. And remember, I told you about when I was trying to explain to your oldest son about how far you ran when we were driving from our house to your house, which is 26 miles. We did the little, how far do you think Mommy runs when she does a half marathon? And I would stop at a light and say, "Will, how far do you think Mommy's run?" And he'd say, "Oh, she's about 5 or 10 miles already." I said, "No, not even 3 miles. And your mother is still running. She's still doing that MS." And, when we continued on, we finally got to the 13.1 mile. I said to him, "And now, from this point on, it's another 13 miles to your house, and your mother is still running and still MS." So it's
I think they'll get it someday. I think they'll get it.
Oh, I think they both will understand it. I think your nephew Christopher understands.
Yeah.
And worships you and is so inspired by you because of having his own experience with an autoimmune disease.
Right.
And you're truly, truly an MS warrior and an inspiration to everyone that knows you. I love the feedback I get from my friends and how they're in awe of not only your attitude but your fighting spirit.
Oh, shucks, Mom. Man, my biggest fan. I got to interview my biggest fan, and I can't say how much that meant to me.
You had your down moments too, but you worked through them.
I did, but I think that only, not to be cliche, but that only made me stronger and made us stronger. Because you don't know your own strength until you're through it. So thanks, Mom. I appreciate you letting me just pick your brain for a little bit about how you felt about it. I'm going to close up the interview and remind everyone that you can find me on livewisems.org. I run the social media pages for them: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, and LinkedIn. You can also email me at editor@livewisems.org. And I hope you join me for a future broadcast of Living Wise with MS on MS&Me Radio. Thank you. Talk soon.
Love you.